Have you ever found yourself thinking, I've seen it all? What's left to discover? Maybe you catch yourself reading the same newspaper columns or watching the same old shows out of habit, even if they don't spark much joy anymore. It's not that you've lost interest in the world, it's just that everything can start to feel a little routine. But here's the secret that many people overlook after 60, curiosity doesn't have an expiration date. In fact, staying curious and feeding that curiosity is one of the most powerful ways to keep your mind sharp, your days fulfilling, and your spirit alive. Whether you're retired, semi-retired, or still juggling part-time work or caregiving, learning new things doesn't have to be hard or time-consuming. It just needs to feel good. It should make you feel alive. Now, you might be wondering, isn't it too late to start something new? Let me stop you right there. Some of the most remarkable stories of personal growth and discovery happen after 60. People learn to paint, pick up a new language, explore family history, or even start writing their memoirs. Not because they have to, but because they're finally giving themselves permission to be curious again. And today, I want to share with you 4 simple, natural ways to bring that spark of curiosity back into your life, without pressure, and without turning it into a chore. Let's start with something simple but powerful: follow your questions. What does that mean, exactly? Well, think about the last time something made you pause and think, I wonder why that is. Maybe it was a story on the news about a faraway place, or maybe you passed by a bird in your garden and thought, I wonder what kind of bird that is. The truth is, those small questions, those little blips of wonder, are golden invitations to curiosity. But we often brush them off, don't we? We think, I'll look it up later, and then forget. But here's what I'd like you to try instead. When you feel a moment of curiosity, lean into it. Look it up right then if you can. Make it easy, use your phone or ask a grandchild. Keep a little notebook or jot things down in a notes app. Treat your questions like breadcrumbs that can lead you on delightful little adventures. You never know what you might stumble upon. I once met a gentleman in his 70s who got curious about the history of his last name. That simple question led him to discover relatives he never knew he had, stories from World War II, and even a connection to a village in Italy he eventually visited. All from one random moment of curiosity. You don't need a degree or a formal class to learn. Just follow your questions, wherever they take you. Now, the second way to stay curious is something that can bring so much unexpected joy. Try something that makes you feel like a beginner again. Now I know, being a beginner isn't always comfortable. It can feel awkward, especially when we're used to being the ones with the answers. But there's something magical about stepping into something completely new. It humbles you, yes, but it also reawakens that childlike part of you that's open, playful, and fully alive. You could try your hand at watercolor painting, even if you've never drawn a stick figure. You could join a local choir or try gardening in a way you never have before. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it shouldn't be perfect. The beauty is in the learning, not the result. The process itself keeps your brain nimble and your spirit energized. I recently heard about a woman in her 60s who started learning how to bake sourdough bread during the pandemic. At first, she burned every loaf. Every single one. But she kept at it, not because she wanted to become a master baker, but because the process of figuring it out gave her a sense of purpose during uncertain times. Now, a few years later, her whole neighborhood knows her for her homemade bread, and she teaches others how to make it too. It's not about the bread. It's about the aliveness that comes from being curious enough to try. That spark you feel when you're experimenting, learning, growing, it's like adding color to your everyday life. It makes the ordinary feel extraordinary again. And you don't have to go it alone either. These little curiosities, these new starts, they become even more enjoyable when you share them. Whether that's chatting with a friend about what you've learned, joining a local group, or even finding a YouTube video that teaches you something step by step, it's never been easier to explore with others from the comfort of your own home. Curiosity isn't just for the young. In many ways, it's a deeper, richer experience when you've lived a little, when you have the wisdom to connect what you're learning to what you already know. Every new thing you try or question you explore adds another layer to the incredible story that is you. And if you're ever unsure about where to start, just pause and ask yourself, what have I always wanted to know, but never made time for? There's no wrong answer. Whether it's learning to play a few notes on the piano, diving into a book on a topic you've never explored, or even just trying out a new walking path in your neighborhood and wondering where it leads, it all counts. It all matters. Now that we've started unlocking that natural, inner curiosity, the kind that's been with you all along, it's time to look at something just as powerful and just as rewarding. If you're still watching and feel that these insights are meaningful, please type number 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I warmly invite you to do so, and don't forget to turn on the bell, so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos designed to uplift, inform, and inspire. Your support truly means a lot. It's what keeps us going and allows us to continue sharing thoughtful, helpful content just for you. Now, let's continue this journey together. And that's the joy of learning with others. One of the most enriching ways to keep your mind alive and your heart engaged is to share the experience of learning. Curiosity can be deeply personal, but when it's shared, even in small ways, it multiplies. It creates connection. And that's what brings us to the next powerful way to stay curious for life: make learning social. Now, I know not everyone is into big groups or clubs, especially if you've always been a bit more on the quiet side. But this doesn't mean you have to throw yourself into a loud classroom or a crowd of strangers. Making learning social can be as simple as having a regular chat with a neighbor about the book you're both reading. Or maybe you and a sibling decide to tackle a new hobby together: woodworking, quilting, or even just trying out new recipes once a week. There's something beautiful that happens when you talk about what you're learning with someone else. It sticks. It becomes more vivid. You might hear a perspective you never considered, or someone might ask a question that takes your curiosity down a new path. Learning with others also keeps you accountable, not in a pressure-filled way, but in a "hey, let's keep this going" kind of way. I know a man, his name's George, who's just turned 72. George didn't consider himself particularly academic or tech-savvy, but during a phone call with his grandson, he asked about something called cryptocurrency. The conversation was quick, but it sparked something. Instead of letting it pass, George asked his grandson to explain more. One conversation turned into two, and soon they were watching short videos together, sending each other links, and talking weekly about what they'd discovered. George even started attending a local community center course on understanding modern money. Not because he needed to invest, but because it helped him feel close to his grandson and excited about learning again. That connection made all the difference. And you don't need family nearby to enjoy that kind of connection. There are so many ways to connect with people who share your interests, even if they're halfway across the world. Online book clubs, local discussion groups, church study sessions, lifelong learning classes at community centers, even just sitting in a park and chatting with someone about what's going on in the world, it all counts. You might be surprised by how much richer life feels when you open yourself up to learning in community. Another gentle way to keep learning alive, especially when you want something peaceful, manageable, and deeply satisfying, is to engage your senses while you learn. Now, this might sound a little unusual at first, but stay with me for a moment. So much of what we take in during the day goes through our eyes. Screens, newspapers, books, it's all very visual. But curiosity doesn't only live in the mind. It lives in the body, too. And sometimes the best way to reignite that sense of wonder is to bring your other senses into the experience. Let's say you're learning about a new culture or country. Don't just read about it, listen to its music. Try cooking a simple dish from that place. Smell the spices. Feel the rhythm of the language or the dance. When your learning becomes sensory, it becomes personal. It moves from your head into your heart. And when that happens, you remember it, not just as information, but as an experience. Even nature offers a beautiful classroom if you're willing to look and feel. Taking a short walk and paying attention to the different textures of leaves, the way the light shifts through the trees, the sounds of birds you don't recognize. It all activates a part of your mind that's tied to wonder and presence. That's learning. That's staying curious. I know a woman who started a census journal at age 68. She'd sit on her back porch each morning with her coffee and write down one thing she saw, one thing she heard, one thing she smelled, and one thing she felt. Over time, this tiny habit became her favorite part of the day. And here's what's even better, it began to open her up to new interests. She started identifying birds, researching wildflowers, learning the names of trees she'd walked past for decades without noticing. All because she allowed her senses to guide her curiosity. Sometimes we think learning means sitting in front of a screen or poring over a book with a highlighter. And yes, that can be great. But learning is just as much about feeling your way through the world. It's about noticing, paying attention, letting something new surprise you. The best part? You don't need to carve out hours of your day or invest in expensive programs. A few minutes here and there, when used with purpose and joy, can completely shift how you experience your life. And if you ever feel silly for trying something new, or think, I should have done this years ago, let me gently remind you, every moment you're alive is a chance to grow. There is no too late. There is no perfect time. The perfect time is the one you take now. You've lived through so much. You've seen the world change in ways younger generations can hardly imagine. And with all that wisdom, you still have room to discover, to explore, and to be surprised by what life has to offer. That is a beautiful thing. Learning doesn't need to be big and dramatic. It can be quiet, joyful, and deeply personal. It can happen over coffee, on a walk, or during a chat with someone you care about. It can even happen while you're sitting in your favorite chair, just wondering about the stars. So as we keep moving forward together, let's open that door even wider. There's one more way to nurture your curiosity that might just change how you see your entire day. And that brings us to something truly powerful, something that doesn't just encourage curiosity, but actually reshapes how we experience each day, change the way you look at the ordinary. It's easy, especially as we get older, to fall into routines. We tend to stick to the same morning rituals, drive the same roads, talk to the same people, and eat at the same places. Routines can bring comfort, yes, but they can also make life feel a bit muted. Like the volume has been turned down. That spark of curiosity? It gets buried under familiarity. But here's the thing, you don't need to change your whole life to rediscover it. Sometimes, all it takes is shifting your perspective just a little, like tilting your head and seeing something from a new angle. For instance, let's say you walk the same route every day. What if one morning, you paused and paid close attention to something you've never really looked at before, a crack in the sidewalk, a vine creeping up a fence, the way the light hits a wall at a certain time of day? That little moment of observation becomes a spark. You might start to wonder, why is that crack there? What plant is that? Has it always looked like this and I just never noticed? That's not just observation. That's curiosity at work. One man I spoke to told me that after retiring, he struggled with boredom. He didn't miss the stress of work, but he missed the mental challenge. What changed things for him was a simple idea. He decided to treat each day like a mini adventure. Every morning, he'd write down one thing he was going to look at or do differently. One day it was talk to someone new at the cafe. Another day it was take a photo of something interesting in the park. These tiny shifts turned his day from something he had to get through into something he could look forward to. You don't need to travel the world to find new things to learn. Sometimes the most surprising discoveries are sitting right in front of you, just waiting for you to look again. And if you like writing, you might consider starting a little journal, not a long, detailed diary, but a space to capture the little wonders. What did you notice today? What made you smile? What made you pause? When you start to record your curiosity, even in a small way, it becomes part of who you are. It's a habit, and like any habit, it grows stronger with time. The most amazing part of all this? When you live with curiosity, your world doesn't get smaller with age, it expands. You begin to realize that every season of life holds something different, something worth exploring. Your memories deepen, your mind stays active and your conversations become more interesting because you're not just existing, you're engaging. And that matters more than you might think. In fact, staying curious isn't just about enjoyment. It's been shown time and time again that lifelong learning can improve memory, lower the risk of cognitive decline, and even reduce feelings of loneliness. That little spark of interest? It lights up the brain in ways that help keep it strong and flexible. I once heard someone say, curiosity is the fountain of youth. And the older I get, the more I believe it. Because when you're curious, you're open. You're present. You're alive to what's happening around you, not stuck in the past, not anxious about the future, but fully here. And don't worry if you've had stretches of time where you didn't feel curious at all. That's normal. Life throws a lot at us: illness, grief, responsibilities. Sometimes we're just trying to get through the day. But even then, curiosity doesn't disappear. It just goes quiet for a while. And the beautiful thing is, it never takes much to wake it back up. It might start with a simple question: what if I tried something different today? Or what if I asked someone about something they love and really listened? That's all it takes to open the door again. Let me leave you with something I think is worth remembering. Being curious isn't about always chasing answers, it's about being willing to ask the questions. It's about looking at life not as something you've already figured out, but as something that still has things to teach you. You've come so far. You've learned, grown, adapted. You've loved, you've lost, you've laughed, and you've endured. But there's more ahead, not because you're missing something, but because your story is still unfolding. And what a gift that is. So, if today you feel that little nudge, that tiny itch to know more, to try something, to wonder about something, follow it. See where it leads. It might be a quiet path or a brand new adventure. Either way, it will be yours. And that's what makes it worth taking. If anything in this video spoke to you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Maybe there's something you've been curious about lately, or a hobby you've picked up recently. Share it below. I read every single message, and I can't tell you how much it means to hear your stories. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like. It helps more people find it who might need this little spark of inspiration. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos just like this one, full of encouragement, real talk, and ideas to help you keep living fully, no matter your age. Because here's the truth: you're never too old to learn something new. You're never too late to be curious. And there's always, always, more beauty to discover, both out in the world and within yourself. Here's to living with wonder, joy, and open eyes. Here's to you.